Project managers, you need more engagement from your sponsor, and you know it. Project managers sometimes struggle to get engagement, suitable engagement from their sponsors, which, to be honest with you, just increases the chances of project failing, considering they're accountable for the project and they get the glory when it goes well and they get the blame when it doesn't. You'd think that would focus their minds, yet often we hear from project managers that their sponsors just aren't engaged enough. I wanted to find out a little bit more about what can be done to improve the engagement between sponsors and project managers from the project manager's perspective. So, whilst I head back to the studio to give an expert a call, what I'd like you to do is drop down into the comments and let me know how much engagement you have. How often do you meet your sponsor? Okay, did you do that? Did you put the number of times that you meet your sponsor? Okay, make sure you do. You owe me one. I had a chat with my friend Guy Thorpe. Now, if you're on LinkedIn, which you should be considering your profession, make sure to follow him because he's got lots of very interesting and useful insights around project and change management. Anyway, Guy shared his expertise with me on how to best engage with a project sponsor. And at the very end of the discussion, he added an aspect which, to be honest with you, is probably the part that scares you the most. So stay tuned for that. Considering the harm that's been done to projects by sponsors failing to engage, I wanted to understand why it is that we struggle to get engagement from sponsors.
A lot of these individuals are being put onto projects. They've been nominated or voluntold that they're jumping onto this project and being asked to look after it and run it. And it's a significant investment of time and money from the organisation as well. And so when we think about sponsors, it's important to remember that not every sponsor is at the same point in their journey. You can actually have sponsors who are just starting out, so it's their first experience of sponsoring a project. You can have individuals that are sponsoring 20 or 30 different projects, which we know is too much. When you're looking at sponsors, they need to be dedicating the time and the effort and the energy to being available for these sorts of things. So, considering how busy that sponsor is and how involved they are is really important as well. And then you also need to sort of test out their interest as well, how interested they are in this piece of work. So there's lots of things to consider to try and get a sponsor engaged and involved.
The conversation then moved on to the nature of the relationship between the sponsor and the project manager. And this is where Guy then offered his insights into the ideal relationship that should exist between sponsor and project manager.
For me, that axis of project sponsor and project manager is pivotal. You really want that relationship working particularly well and managing each other and their expectations. And I think like any good relationship that you've got in your life, it's all about trust and clear communication. And so sometimes we forget that when we step into a project context or a business setting, we forget some of those fundamentals. But for me, getting a sponsor committed and engaged starts with stepping into the realm of treating them as a person, trying to understand where they're at on their sponsorship journey, but also being really clear about your expectations of them as a sponsor and also their expectations of you as a project manager. A lot of times that conversation doesn't take place and there's a lot of these unspoken things that go on which cause problems and gaps in projects. So being really clear up front, set up a meeting with your project sponsor, sit down, spend half an hour, talk about the expectations of each other. If you've got a position description for a project sponsor in your organization, then talk through that. Use that as a grounding or as a basis to sort of go through and what you'll be expecting that individual to be involved with. If you don't have one, create one. It's always a really good landing pad to start with into that space as well.
Pay close attention now, friends. This is where Guy shares how the project manager should engage with the sponsor, and this could be where you're going wrong.
Once you're in that conversation with the individual, think about what type of person are they? Are they a CFO? Are they really interested in the numbers and the bottom line that comes with that? Getting a gauge on that type of person. Are they a CIO, for example, or working a senior position within the tech side of things? Are they going to be data-driven? Are they going to be numbers and data-driven? So working out how does your sponsor like to receive information and get information is really critical as well. Just because you're used to communicating in one particular way, it doesn't mean that necessarily that's how your sponsor wants to receive that information. So getting a gauge upon how they work, where they're at in their journey, and what they like to receive information through, whether it's status reports or one-to-one conversations, is really critical right at the start of your setup.
You may recall that earlier I asked you to put in the comments how often you meet with your project sponsor. And if you didn't, then you owe the video a like. So go and press that button now. Anyway, this is the part of the video where Guy explains the importance of having regular meetings with your project sponsor.
I think once you've gone through that process of being clear around the relationship, what you need from each other, the type of information that they like to receive, then it's being really clear about the cadence of how often you'd like to meet. So setting up one-to-ones really early on in the project is key. Get those locked in. If they've got an EA that you need to talk to, work with that person to block in a time that's going to work with them going forward on a regular cadence. Try and find a spot that you're not going to be constantly bumped. So after a board meeting or after a senior ELT meeting, for example, as they tend to always overrun, find a spot when your sponsor is going to be in a good space that you can actually have the conversations around your project and how it works going forward as well. So once you've established that, you've got a good platform to work from, and then you've got a good basis to sort of work with going forward for your project sponsors as well. And that's probably how I'd set it up going forward to get a sponsor engaged and involved.
Are you ready to do the scary bit now? It can be very daunting to tell a senior manager, a sponsor, what your expectations are of them on your project. So, how do you go about doing that?
And I guess, I'd always be encouraging to say, this individual's entrusting you to run this piece of work. They're making you responsible for its delivery. And you need to have an open and honest relationship with that person. And that means being a little bit brave and putting yourself out there a little bit and saying, hey, look, if this project really is to work well and we are to be a success together in the delivery of this piece, this is honestly what I need from you. And I encourage people just to step up a little bit. I know it's tricky and I know it can be quite daunting, but if you form that relationship very early on where you are being seen to being really clear, really transparent with your expectations and what you will deliver for them as well, I think that puts you on a really good platform. If you take on the subservient nature right from the get-go, that sort of establishes your relationship straight away. But if you come forward with being clear and articulate and transparent about what you're going to be doing, that really sets a very different tone for your sponsor project manager relationship going forward.
I don't know about you, but I found all of that really uplifting, really inspiring. So Guy, thank you for your time, and everybody, make sure to go and follow him on LinkedIn. Your job as a project manager is tough enough at the best of times, so you need a fully engaged sponsor to back you up throughout the whole lifetime of the project. So go and arrange a meeting with them, book a meeting right after this video, and reset those expectations, reset that relationship. It's in both of your best interests to do so. And when you get back, you'll be happy to know that Guy came back for another conversation with me, this time about the completely uncontroversial topic of whether to use waterfall or agile for your project. The video's there. Enjoy.